Welcome to Sports Spectrum, where we bring Jesus back into the conversation. Here's your host, former ESPN producer, Jason Romano.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So excited that you're joining us here today. I am Jason Romano. Our website, sportspectrum.com. Make sure you go check that out for all of our content here at the Ministry of Sports Spectrum. Articles, daily devotionals, podcasts, all available at sportspectrum.com. If you have a guest idea, you can email me, jason@sportspectrum.com. Maybe you have some feedback on today's show with Vinny Rey. Maybe you have a story that we should be covering or writing about. You guys do a great job on social media tagging us too at sports_spectrum, letting us know when there's a story out there that intersects sports and faith. You guys are awesome doing that. Well, you can also email me if you want to go into detail about a specific story that we should be covering, jason@sportspectrum.com. And then when you're at sportspectrum.com, our website, I want to tell you about our magazine. And it's the only thing that we charge or put up for sale, if you will, here at Sports Spectrum in the ministry. I mean, everything pretty much is free, what we offer, including this podcast. But our magazine is something really special. It's the pillar. The history of Sports Spectrum dates back to 1985, and this magazine has been going strong now for 35 plus years. And it's still available right now as a quarterly magazine, and it's a great resource for you to pick up, to read, hear, in-depth stories that are in there, devotionals that are in there, some really good content that not only can you get, but get it for your kids, get it for your grandkids. Maybe if you're in a small group or a men's group or a youth group, the Sports Spectrum magazine can be a great resource. And here's the cool thing. It's super cheap. It's $18. That's it. $18 for an entire year subscription. So for a $20 bill, you get the Sports Spectrum magazine. Now, we also offer a digital version of the magazine as well. So for $18, you get an actual printed copy in your hand, but you also get access online to the digital version of Sports Spectrum's magazine. $18, you get both the digital and the print magazine. Check it out at sportspectrum.com. Super cheap, $18. Subscribe today. If you want more details, you can email me. Happy to share them with you. But we would love to have you subscribe. We're trying to get our subscriptions up. 2021, we really want to continue publishing the magazine, and it requires people like you to kind of sow into this ministry if you believe in what we do, which hopefully you will. It's really well done. That's what we try to do here at Sports Spectrum, is do what we're doing in an excellent way to honor God. And the magazine is a great place for that. $18 over at sportspectrum.com. We also want to say thank you to our partners and sponsors today. We'll tell you a little bit more about them halfway through the show. But Convoy of Hope is our newest partner and sponsor. Check them out at convoynation.com and get aligned with the work that they are doing, fighting hunger, fighting poverty, fighting suffering in the United States and throughout the world over at convoynation.com. And then our friends at Ronald Blue Trust, wealth management strategies, trust services based on biblical principles. You got questions about finances, retirement, estate planning, bill paying, charitable giving. We all have questions that are regarding our finances, and sometimes we don't know where to turn. Ronald Blue Trust is the place to turn. Check them out at ronblue.com to learn more. ronblue.com. All right, today on the show, really excited about Vinny Rey as our guest, the former Cincinnati Bengals linebacker, undrafted in 2010 out of Duke University. Duke University for football. Vinny Rey played football there and got his opportunity to get to the NFL as an undrafted free agent in 2010. And guess what? He went on to play 9 years in the NFL, all with the Cincinnati Bengals from 2010 to 2018. It almost didn't happen. He was waived very early in his career, in his rookie year, on September 4th, 2010, but re-signed to the practice squad the next day, promoted to the active roster, and stayed on the active roster for the next 8 years. 5 straight years in the playoffs, 5 career interceptions, including a pick six in 2013, twice nominated for the NFL's prestigious Walter Payton Man of the Year award. He was a 4-year team captain and the Bengals' leading tackler in 2014, 2015, and 2017. Vinny's got a really fun story growing up in Queens, New York, and then ending up in the NFL with the Cincinnati Bengals. Lots of fun stories, lots of football, and hearing his story about Jesus as well. Take a listen to Vinny Rey, the former Cincinnati Bengals linebacker here on Sports Spectrum. Vinny Rey, welcome to Sports Spectrum, buddy. How are you?
Doing well, and I'm glad to be here, Jason.
Absolutely. Glad to have you here. Let's start with your football career. We're talking about 9 years in the NFL, so that's an amazing accomplishment, but all with the same team. And that seems hard to fathom in this day and age with free agency and that NFL not for long moniker that it has. You have to take some pride, I would imagine, that you played your entire career with one team.
Absolutely. I take pride in that. I'm so thankful for that. Not having to move around to multiple teams. I'd hear of other guys who come to the Bengals from other teams around the league, and they would even tell me, hey, it's a rarity that you're here 4 years or 5 years, and the years just kept going. And, I see it as just, hey, I'm just competing every day, trying my best to stay in the NFL. I did like the Bengals. I really enjoyed my time there, but it was really just being a part of that league. It was so tough to stay in there, and I'm thankful I stayed in for 9 years.
When you were a kid, when does the dream to play in the NFL really begin for you? Because I tell people, my dream was to always be an athlete like every kid who loves sports. But once I realized I wasn't that great of an athlete, my dream was to go into broadcasting and work at a radio station or a television station. And I tell people I didn't dream big enough to get to a place like ESPN, which is where I ended up. But for you, when did you start dreaming about, or maybe a better question is, what was the dream when you were 10, 11, 12 years old for Vinny Rey?
So when I was, a preteen, 10, 11, 12, I just wanted to be great at playing football. And I played all the sports, football, basketball, baseball, every year, all seasons. And I just wanted to have fun and be great at whatever I did. But once I got to high school, and I think a game-changing moment for me was after my freshman year, I was given an MVP award when I was on junior varsity. And that was a big deal for me because I realized, hey, it's something I'm pretty good at also. I wasn't as good at the other sports. It was more fun. But this one, I was pretty good at it. And I said, hey, I think I want to be a professional. I want to be as great as I possibly can, great as I possibly can be at football. So I started to take it very serious at that moment and thinking, hey, the highest level is the National Football League. One day, maybe I'll have a shot to be in there if I work as hard as I can.
How does a kid from Queens end up at Duke? Walk us through that journey a little bit, because not only at Duke, but at Duke to play football, which obviously Duke, known as a basketball school, it's got a good football program too, clearly. But how does a kid growing up in Queens, we were talking about, us both being New York Mets fans as kids, if you're in the backyard of Queens, but you end up at Duke. So walk us through what happened there.
Man, so that was a long road. First, I tried to get into some Catholic schools, Christ the King, maybe a specialized school called Brooklyn Tech, which is another good school. And I didn't get into those schools. So I ended up thankfully getting into Bayside High School. The only issue for that was in Bayside, Queens. I was from Far Rockaway, Queens, the total opposite side of the city, of the borough of Queens, which is the largest borough of all 5 boroughs. Yeah. And it took me about 2 hours each way to get to school and to get back home. 2 trains and a bus, the A train to the J train to the Q31 bus every single day. And it was 4 years. It was tough, but thankfully I got a scholarship. The way I got it was an unconventional way. I didn't have any scholarships at the time, and it was a few weeks before signing day. And I was thinking, hey, I'll just apply to some colleges and walk on at whatever college I apply to. And my head coach at Bayside, his name was Joe Capuano, and Coach Cap reached out to a coach in Staten Island named Coach Paterzo at Wagner High School, who was kind of the guy he was an older guy. He knew a lot of different, he's a guy who knew guys, and he knew of a Jerry Azanero. And Coach Az was a coach for Duke. He was a defensive coordinator, and he got on the phone with him and said, "Hey, there's a guy up here at Bayside who's a good player. Check him out." Coach Azzanaro shows up to Bayside High School the next week, and he checks out my highlight tape, which is about 4 plays long, and says, "Hey, we don't have any scholarships open this year because signing day is coming, but next year we would love to have you if you attend a prep school for a year." I go to a prep school in Mercersburg Academy in Pennsylvania, a town about 2,000 people. Go there for a year, and after that, go to Duke University, and I'm playing football at Duke. Wow. So it was a long road, but I made it. I made it there.
So there's a couple things I want to unpack a little bit. Number one is 2 hours every day, taking the train, taking the bus in high school. Do you just get used to it, or were you coming home every day and be like, "Mom, Dad, do I have to do this?" Or were you just so excited to be at Bayside that you didn't care about the grind that went in? And that's, by the way, not including, I'm sure, practices and extracurricular activities and other things that you're probably doing as a high school kid. That's quite the hike every day.
Every day. It was tough, and I wasn't complaining at all. By the way, I had to walk about 10 blocks to the train station. There were no snow days in New York, so it didn't matter. You just put on the Timbs and just walk to the train station. But I wasn't complaining. I was just glad to be a part of a school that had a football team. Most schools in New York City, public schools, did not have football. So I was glad to be a part of a team and a good school. And it was just competing with myself every day to manage my time, to do well in school, to do well in football. And you get used to it. And that even happened at Duke, which is it's hard. Academically, it's really tough at Duke. But you know what? It's tough for everybody. So you get used to it. You kind of look around and you see everyone else has to write these long essays just like you do. And you just, go to all the focus groups and meet with all the tutors you can, and you just find a way to get it done.
Just do the best you can. You said you went to a prep school as well. What was that experience like? Because you're done with high school, kind of, but you're going to a prep school for a year, which probably felt like going to college, I would imagine, right? For a year, even though it wasn't college.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It was a great stepping stone from Bayside to Duke, because Mercersburg Academy was a very rigorous academic school. So it wasn't just people my age who had finished high school and had gone on to private school for a year, but it was 9th through 12th also. So I kind of felt like, hey, I'm 18 years old. I'm here with 15-year-olds. I don't really belong. But at the same time, it was good to be there because academically, it helped prepare me. It helped prepare me to manage my time. They had what was called block scheduling, which the classes were maybe 50 minutes, maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours, not 2 hours, maybe an hour and 50 minutes long, which at Duke, some of the classes were like that. So it really helped me, especially athletically. Every team had what you would call 4 postgrads, which I was a postgraduate. And every team we played, those 4 guys had Division I scholarships somewhere. They were usually the best players on the team. So in that way, there was a lot of competition. So every week I'm playing against a guy who's going to a Division I school, at least 4 guys who are. And so it helped me all the way around.
Vinny Rey is our guest here on Sports Spectrum, former Cincinnati Bengals linebacker. I want to ask you about your faith. Let's intersect the conversation a little bit with your walk with the Lord. Where does it take shape? What kind of seeds were planted when you were younger, if any? And then kind of take us through that journey to Christ.
Yes. So the seeds were planted in my household growing up. My parents became followers of Christ in their early 20s. And so I grew up in an environment where Christ was important. It was important to go to church. It was important to serve. And more importantly, it was modeled in my household through attending a food pantry weekly to serve the needs of those in our community. My parents were youth leaders in the church, and they really gave their time to the church, their time, their talents, and their treasures. So it was great to see it modeled, but I needed to own it for myself. And there were instances throughout my adolescent years of me in high school owning my faith for myself. But it was really when I was about 20 or 21 years old at Duke, that coming of age where I'm a kid who grew up in church. I was attending church. I read my Bible nightly. Every night I read a chapter a night. My father had suggested I do that. But it was time for me to really stand up for the Lord. And I had a mentor. His name was Mitch, who is currently a mentor in the NFL, I believe, with Tennessee. And he told me, he said, "Hey, you're not this guy that everyone thinks you are. You know, I know everyone pats you on the back and says how great of a person you are, but according to the Bible, you know, you cannot walk in sin. You cannot walk in sin and say that you're cool with God. You're at peace with God." And what he showed me was that I was comparing my righteousness to the righteousness of other people around me, which that was a great deception. And I'm thankful he told me that, because when the time comes on Judgment Day, my righteousness is not going to be compared to people around me, but to God, who's holy and blameless. And that's what I have to measure up to. So I'm so thankful for that, because I know that it's not about, oh, I'm better than that person. You know, I think I read that in the Bible. Like, that's how Pharisees thought. And I was thinking like a Pharisee, but it's really, I'm compared to God, and really humbled me. And since that time, every day I've been pursuing righteousness, pursuing perfection, pursuing maturity in my life. Because I know when on Judgment Day, and I know even now, God wants me to live a holy life, to shine bright for him. So that's what I aim to do every day, to live holy, to be righteous, to do good among, in our world with my family. It starts in my household with my wife and my children, and to bring others along with me.
Well, interestingly, you use a word, being humbled. And I have to imagine when you finish your college career and you go undrafted. So, as the draft is coming up here and players are getting ready and to have their moment, if you will. But there's a lot of guys that go undrafted and go on to have, really good careers in the NFL like you did. But it's still not fun to go undrafted because there's so much uncertainty. Take me back to that time when you were coming out of Duke, you were preparing for the NFL, hoping to get a shot. Really, that's all you want is a chance. But you're not knowing where you might go, and then getting that phone call from Cincinnati.
I was hoping to get drafted, maybe in the later rounds. I was second team all conference. I had 3 years in a row. I had 100+ tackles. I had some, 3 touchdowns in college as a defensive player, and statistically, I did pretty well. But when the day came, I never saw my name go across the ticker. I started to see other guys at my position who you think you're like, man, I've played just as well as him. I think I could do just as good as him, or even better if I get an opportunity. Yeah. And, towards the end of the draft, I had calls from some teams. And once the Cincinnati Bengals called me and they told me, hey, this is the role we want you to play. You have 5 minutes, It's just like that. Wow. And, because when you're undrafted, there's so many people, there's such a large pool for these teams to choose from. So you're just the number. So they just say, hey, call him. All right, are you going to sign with us? We will call you back in 5 minutes. And, if we don't hear an answer, we're moving on. And it was just like that. So in those 5 minutes, I prayed with my parents. I called my college coach, and I decided, hey, I think the Bengals I called my agent also, and everyone decided that the Cincinnati Bengals would probably be a better fit, the best chance for me to make the team.
Mm.
And it humbled me, but I was thankful to have an opportunity.
Isn't it interesting? I was talking to Bryant Young recently, and he's the longtime San Francisco 49ers defensive tackle, and he was a Pro Bowler, and he was a first-round selection coming out of Notre Dame. But I remember asking him just recently, I said, when you look back, you could have easily gone somewhere else. He thought he was going to, I think he said Seattle. And then the Niners traded up like right at the last minute and picked him. And suddenly, without knowing anything, didn't even get a workout with San Francisco. He's a 49er, and he played his entire career with the Niners, 14 years, and had an amazing career. And I said to him, isn't it interesting when you look back how you can see God kind of orchestrating his plan all throughout? When you're in the middle of it, it doesn't feel like that. It feels like, absolute chaos. So I'm really going to just kind of present that to you as well. When you're going through it, 5 minutes to make a decision that ultimately ends up 9 years playing for the same team. And in 5 minutes, you have to make that decision.
I didn't even think about it like that. I just know in that moment, you're like stressed, but you're thinking, wow, where am I going to go?
Yeah.
It's so much that I don't know, on the other side of this. I had maybe 3 other teams that had reached out to me, and I'm like, wow, where should I go? And, you just hope it's not the wrong decision. But as you say, I look back, and that was 10 years ago. And now, look, it's been played 9 years in the NFL, met my wife, and have 3 children. And
right.
I'm thankful to God for helping me, making that decision.
What do you think would have happened if you hadn't made that decision in 5 minutes? Hopefully another team would have called and you would have had that opportunity. But when you think back now over what you just described over 10 years, maybe all that doesn't kind of work out the way it's supposed to work out, the way it did work out, if you hadn't said yes to go to Cincinnati, right?
Yes, I don't think it works out that way. I don't know if I make a team. I don't know how long I play in the NFL if I do. But another thing is my wife, she went to law school after she graduated from Duke. She went to law school at University of Illinois, and I had just met her as she was graduating from Duke. And really our relationship was built through long distance, but I would travel to Illinois. It was a 3-hour drive from Cincinnati. So if I go to one of these other teams that were reaching out to me, there's no way I would have built that relationship like that with her.
Right.
So it's so many things that you don't know, but you just have to walk in faith, take the step, pray, and just go on.
And then you come to Cincinnati and you're starting every game and it's all gravy and perfect, blue skies and sunshine. But that's actually not the case at all, because you get there your first season and you're waived and you're picked up and you're on the practice squad. You don't even get into your first game until week 14, week 13, somewhere in that range. So the tests kept coming right when you got to the league.
Yes, it never stopped. From day one, I heard, hey, there are 90 guys here. Only 53 are going to be on the team and only 8 on the practice squad. So I said, that every day is an audition. I have to prove myself every day, from meeting rooms, being not on time, but being early, being focused, taking all the notes I can. Yeah. So coach doesn't even have to tell me once that I'm wrong, when I get on the field. So from walkthrough to jog through to even stretch and individual period, every single thing I was competing with myself to be as best as I can, because I was thinking, hey, when the time comes for them to tell me to leave, I don't want to have any regrets thinking, oh man, I wish I studied the playbook more. Oh man, I wish I was focused at the person in my position in front of me during walkthrough to see what he was doing. Oh man, I wish I would have ran to the ball better. I didn't want to have any of those regrets because all of those things are in my control. And, getting waived, I was on the practice squad, and every week on the practice squad is very fluid. Then guys leaving and guys coming. Especially that first year we were losing. So when you're losing, everyone's trying to find a reason why. And all fingers are going to be pointed to the practice squad players, Hey, you guys aren't giving us a good enough look in practice for us to do well in the games. So that's what's said. So every day you're just competing, hoping I'm not the guy to get cut this day, and preparing as if I'm going to play in the game, even though I wasn't playing for 13 weeks.
A quick break to tell you about our new partners and sponsors today, Convoy of Hope, a faith-based nonprofit organization with a driving passion to feed the world through children's feeding initiatives, community outreaches, and disaster responses. And right now in the U.S. and throughout the world, countless families are living on the fringe or have fallen into the depths of poverty and suffering. But you can make a difference. And right now, we need you to join the starting lineup with Convoy of Hope and join your favorite players and teams in partnering with Convoy of Hope to fight hunger, poverty, and suffering in the United States and throughout the world. And in doing so, you can advocate, give, network, and volunteer to help ensure that those in need receive hot meals, groceries, haircuts, health and dental screenings, hygiene kits, shoes, clothing, family portraits, and much more. You can learn more right now and be a part of the great work Convoy of Hope is doing by visiting them at their website, convoynation.com. You can donate, you can pray, and be a part of all that Convoy of Hope is doing by, again, checking out that website, convoynation.com, CONVOY nation.com. We're also presented today by our friends at Ronald Blue Trust. Their advisors applying biblical wisdom and technical expertise to help clients make wise financial decisions to experience clarity and confidence and leave a lasting legacy. We all have questions about our finances. Where do we go? What do we invest in? How much do we spend? How much do we save? Ronald Blue Trust has all of those answers. They offer comprehensive financial services and objective advice to over 9,500 clients across the wealth spectrum in all 50 states. You can reach them at ronblue.com. That's their website, ronblue.com. Tell them Sports Spectrum sent you. Ronald Blue Trust. You can trust them. We trust them. Check them out. Biblical Principles, Wealth Management Strategies, ronblue.com. What was the welcome to the NFL moment for you? Maybe your first game. Maybe it was a couple games in where you were just kind of like, I'm here. I'm in the league. I'm suiting up, getting ready to play. Do you remember it?
Yes. I have two welcome in the NFL moments. My first one, I was brought up on the roster, but my first two games I didn't play. The first game I played was Christmas Day, I believe. We're playing against the Chargers, who were in San Diego at the time.
Yeah.
And they come to Cincinnati. It's snowing, and they have to win to get in the playoffs. But it's snowing. It's in Cincinnati. It's late December. They're from San Diego. So we're thinking, hey, they might not want to, might not want to play as much as we do. And my first game dressing, I'm in all four phases of special teams, and I'm the personal protector on punt, which what I took as a big time job because, it's my first game dressing, and my coach trusts me to be the person to quarterback the punt team. Yeah. And there was a play where the whole punt team, the San Diego Chargers punt team, they're coming on the rush. They roll the guy from the outside to come and be an extra rusher, and I ended up getting it protected. We got the punt off, and that was a big time play for me. It was the end of the half, and we had to get the punt off. They were going to try to block it and score. That was my first welcome to the NFL moment. And my second one was the following week. We were playing in Baltimore for the last game of the season. And it was just a special moment. 2010, playing in Baltimore against such great players, guys who would be Hall of Famers, multiple Pro Bowlers, and had a chance to see Ray Lewis on the other side. That was an awesome moment. Yeah, that's pretty cool. I want to talk about a specific game because you brought up Baltimore at the end of the year. And I was like, now, there's a pretty famous Cincinnati-Baltimore game, which I think was, 17 or 18? So it might have been your last year. It was the game where Cincinnati won in Baltimore, knocked the Ravens out, and gave the Bills a shot at the playoffs for the first time in 20 years. And it was one of those
just those games when you watch and you're like, did that just happen? That should not have just happened. How did that happen? Mm-hmm. Take us to that game, because I know you know what game I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, that game we're going into that game. We didn't have a good season. We're 6-9. Baltimore is rolling. They're playing very well, but they have to win this last game to be in.
And it's in Baltimore, right?
It's in Baltimore. It's a night game. Everyone in the nation's watching.
Yeah.
So we go there. It's early January, so it's freezing because it's Baltimore. And we're playing, and we have a lot of injuries on our team. A lot of guys it's the last game of the season. You got guys playing through pains and nicks, like everyone in the league was. But yeah, we're Tyler Boyd makes a great catch from Andy Dalton and scores, and the defense has to go out there and stop Joe Flacco and the Baltimore offense. And we go out there, it's 4th down, and I just know that I win and made the tackle, and it was close to the first down mark, and we look up, and it was a yard shy, and we win the game, and we were shocked.
2 things on that game. Number one, I talked to Andy Dalton probably a couple months after that game and just asked him, the reaction, because the Buffalo fans donated so much money, if you remember, to his foundation to be able to help people, because they were so happy if the Bengals helped the Bills get into the playoffs. And the other thing I remember about that game was the video of the Bills locker room. And then Eric Wood was on this show. He was one of the offensive linemen on Buffalo. That was his last year. And there's a famous video of him and some other guys from those Bills teams that have been there for years watching Cincinnati beat Baltimore and the touchdown from Andy Dalton, and then you guys stopping them, and they get into the playoffs, and they're going nuts. Like, they're going crazy in that locker room. So I'm wondering, did you ever see that? Did you go back, and were you able to kind of watch that celebration for the Bills, or could you even be happy for the Bills? Not that you're trying to win for them. You're just trying to win because you want to win a game. But there's some, I don't know, there's some, you provided another team with some help, clearly, in a game that you didn't need to win. Was there anything like that going on maybe for you?
Yes, I was happy. I knew a couple guys on that team for the Bills. And at first I was like, oh, it's cool they're going to the playoffs. But seeing how the locker room on TV, how they were just so happy, and the fans in Buffalo were so happy, I was happy for that team. And I know a guy who was on Buffalo at that time on the Bills team named Preston Brown, linebacker. And he was telling me that it was a surreal moment in that Bills locker room.
That's great. Well, hopefully Cincinnati gets another shot at doing that again soon. They got a great young quarterback, and they showed some promise last year. So hopefully they get that shot again too, and those Bengal fans can have something to cheer about. I want to ask you, as we wind down, just a little bit about faith in the locker room and with the team and being in the NFL. The NFL, I think, does a really great job at cultivating and allowing, I guess you want to call it that, an atmosphere of faith. Tons of guys are believers, even if it's, different stages of what that means to be a believer. There's so many guys that either grew up, going to church. There's opportunities for conferences like PAO and others for guys to go and attend and be a part of. You had some really cool opportunities, I know, in the locker room with, a team chaplain that would put Bible studies on, and guys like Carson Palmer and Andy Dalton and others. Lamorris Crawford has been on the show. Just talk about what that was like, kind of coming into the league and then being a believer in the NFL.
It was great. It was great coming into the league, seeing, hey, some of the better players on this team are followers of Christ, and they're not ashamed of being Christians. And that set a tone. Coaches always say, set the tone from the beginning. So on defense, what that means is get to the ball. Don't let them get a first down. Yeah. And when I came in the locker room, it set the tone to see guys like Andrew Whitworth as, stalwarts on the team, leaders on the team. These guys are Christians, and they're loving their wives, they're loving their children, and they're servant leaders. They're trying to serve. They're more interested in helping someone else than themselves.
Yeah.
And our team chaplains, from Ken Moyer to David Williams to Lamaris Crawford, for my last 6 years, it was awesome. They were strong men of God, men who set the tone again, men who say what they mean and mean what they say. And even Lamaris's wife, Megan, she helped to lead when we had couple study. So it was great to have her also. And my wife was really connected with significant others on the team, whether wives, fiancés, or girlfriends. And, I can't say enough about the atmosphere in the NFL that's very conducive to Christianity, very open to it. I love it.
Yeah. Meet me at the 50, right? That's the big one. Get to the 50-yard line after every game. I assume that was something you wanted to be a part of too.
Absolutely. I would go to the 50-yard line, and it was cool because you see other guys on other teams, they're praying, and you're like, man, other guys on these teams, they believe in the Lord. And at Pro Athletes Outreach in the off season, PAO, I would get to meet some of these other players, and it didn't matter if you won or lost, you're going to meet at the 50-yard line. And I remember 2015 against Seattle, we playing at home. I think it went into overtime. We won that game. But I'll never forget how many players Seattle had at the 50-yard line. Yeah. I'm just like, man, it's like half the team, it's like half the coaches on that side are here crying out to the Lord. And that really left an impression on me.
That's cool. I love it. I think it's a great tradition. I'm glad they continued it in 2020, even in the midst of the pandemic, where I know there was some apprehensiveness or people didn't want too many people gathering or whatever, but guys kept doing it. And I hope it continues as long as there's the NFL. I just think it's a real cool public statement of faith without being exclusive. Everybody's welcome, right? It's public. So everybody's welcome to come in. If you don't want to join, you don't have to join. But it honors God in a way, I think, where it makes it bigger than football. And that's really hard for a lot of guys, right? Because football is your life. Football is, it's your job. You're making so much money. You're having, so much time and effort into this league. To stop and just give God the thanks, it's pretty cool to watch.
Mm-hmm. It is. I love to see it. I love when guys come to the 50-yard line. I can't say enough about it. The locker rooms, I just talked a whole lot about it, but I can't say enough about how NFL locker rooms are open to faith. Yeah. And it's a great thing.
Yeah. Did you guys have any kind of, was there a team prayer before every game that you would do? I mean, obviously, you don't want to alienate anybody, but it feels like even those that might not be believers or even of other religions, they don't mind taking part in a team prayer before you're going out for a big game. Did you have that?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So the night before the games, we had chapel and all were welcomed. Coaches and players, it was usually packed out. And before the games, we would pray together, go in the showers, and we'll all pray as we're already dressed, And then our head coach, Coach Lewis, he would speak to us. And then before he spoke to us, we would say a prayer together.
Yeah. That's cool. Vinny, as we wind down, I got to ask you about transitioning out of the league. And that's always hard. And finding your purpose outside of football, finding your purpose to give back and to serve others. I know you're a person who sponsors a child with compassion, one of our sponsors and partners, and you're active in giving back and being in the church. But what was that transition like? Was it hard to go from having played football since you were whatever age you were to not playing anymore at 31 years old, which is still so young, and yet you're quote unquote retired from the league, which you're not retired because there's so much life left to live. What was that transition like?
Yes, a little over a year ago, I decided to retire, and it was tough because I played football for so long in my life. From when I was 7 years old through 31, 32 years old, I've been playing football, and I knew it was so much a part of me that it would be tough that, hey, I'm no longer identified by it. But I had a brother at my church who really helped me, my local church here. His name's Luis, and he said, "What you do matters, but who you are matters more." So what you do matters, but who you are matters more. And ultimately, who I am is my greatest identity is not a football player. You know, I'm a son, I'm a father, I'm a husband. And ultimately, the greatest thing I'll ever be, I believe, is a child of God. And that really helped me. Not saying that there won't be struggles for others, but at this point, you know, I don't really struggle with being retired. I'm glad I don't have to go out there and hit other people anymore. And I'm glad I can be a fan. I'm a big fan of the Bengals, and I'm a fan of the NFL in general. But not to say that there won't ever be any more struggles with identity for me, but I know how to fight those struggles, and knowing not what I do is not what defines me, it's who I am. So knowing my identity.
Does anything still hurt? Like when you wake up, having played the NFL for 9 years, you're like, yeah, that's an NFL, you know, kink in the armor, if you will. That hurts. Does anything still hurt?
Nothing hurts. Thankfully, I didn't have any surgeries or anything.
That's good.
Nothing hurts. But I'll tell you what, things just crack on me sometimes. You know? like my daughter will just say, "What was that?" I say, "Oh, my back just cracked." You know, no pain, but I'll just crack, you know, which is just funny. But I did all the massages and the cold tub, hot tub and things like that. But still, it was painful while I played in my last 2 to 3 years, especially my last 2 years. I wasn't recovering like I used to. You know, as a rookie, games on Sunday, the start of the work week is Wednesday. By Wednesday, you're fine.
Yeah.
But my last year, I wasn't good to go until maybe Friday, you know? So I'm just still in pain, and it was bad by Monday, you know, the first day after the game, I'll be really sore. But yeah, I'm no more of that soreness. So I'm glad, but I need to start exercising more consistently. I'll do some running, some push-ups and stuff, but those are things I need to start doing.
Well, a lot of guys, just because they do that so much when they play, when they're done, you just don't want to do it anymore, right?
You're right. So the whole 2020, I didn't do anything. Like I just said, look, I realized I don't like to exercise. I did it my whole life because I had to.
Yeah.
I don't like to do it, but I've gotten on a regimen now where I do some running. I'll do the elliptical. I'll do some push-ups and sit-ups. I'll do some lunges, but I probably need to do some squats or something, you know, some pull-ups. Pull-ups make me feel strong. But man, I carry around my 20-pound daughter who's 5 months old. She's our biggest baby. So that's my work right now.
Well, listen, the doctors always say, at least my doctor says to me, just move every day. If you're moving on some level and your heart's getting going and you're eating okay, you're going to be fine. And so I'm not ever going to be, you know, an ex-pro athlete who went through what you guys went through. But I just go for walks, Vinny. And I'm telling you, a 3-mile walk when the heart's pumping and you're listening to podcasts or whatever, that's my kind of exercise.
Yeah, as the weather's getting a little warmer here, I think we're going to just put the baby in the stroller. Yes. And we'll all just go for a walk.
That's it. That's exercise, my friend. Hey, man, this was awesome. Thank you again for being here. Thanks for sharing your story. I had a lot of fun, and hopefully we get to do it again, and hopefully we get to see each other in person at PAO pretty soon, too. Thanks for joining us, buddy.
Thanks for having me, Jason.
That's fun stuff there from Vinny Rey. Glad he was able to join us here on Sports Spectrum. And a little inside info. We don't usually share a lot of inside info, if you will, but we actually recorded an interview with Vinny on March 3rd. And there was, you know, in this Zoom world with streaming and internet, sometimes you don't have a good connection. And there was a huge delay. There was, you know, in and out audio. You really couldn't hear what Vinny had to say. It was a fun conversation, but it didn't turn out well. So he was gracious enough to come back about a week later and record the interview that you just heard right now. So I just want to publicly thank Vinny for being willing to do 2 interviews with us on Sports Spectrum. And the second one The audio, as you heard, was perfect, and just grateful to have him share his story of sports and faith and the NFL and even transitioning out of the NFL. Just a really good dude. And, there's a lot of great guys in the NFL, and Vinny Rey is definitely one of those guys. So glad that he was able to share his story here on Sports Spectrum. We're also glad that you tuned in as well. Again, our website is sportspectrum.com. Make sure that's the home base for our content that you bookmark, and you go there every day. There's different articles. There's devotionals each day that you can go through. The podcasts are on there. So check it out at sportspectrum.com. And then again, one more push for the magazine. If you get a chance, it's $18, so it's super cheap. You can subscribe for a 1-year subscription, at least 5 issues of the magazine, possibly more. You get the digital version as well. It's $18, super cheap, available at sportspectrum.com. You can subscribe today. I want to thank again our partners and sponsors, Ronald Blue Trust. You can check them out at ronblue.com for all of your wealth management needs and strategies and trust services, all based on biblical principles. Ronald Blue Trust at ronblue.com. And then our friends at Convoy of Hope, our newest partners and sponsors, fighting hunger, poverty, and suffering. Man, they are a great ministry to partner with and get behind. We're thankful for Convoy of Hope. They're doing great work. Check them out at convoynation.com to donate and to serve with the Convoy of Hope at convoynation.com. Thanks again so much for tuning in. We'll see you guys next time right here on Sports Spectrum. I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and please do stay safe.